up, guys? It's been 1 month since my wife did that April Fool's prank on TikTok, and I got 150 subscribers. So, you know, I don't really know what my goal for this YouTube channel is, but you know, I bought this car probably about 1.5 years ago, and I swapped an LS2 out of a 2005 Pontiac GTO into it. It was a pretty big process, and you know, the whole time I thought, you know, I'd pick up a camera. At some point I bought about $500 worth of GoPro stuff, and I thought I would videotape the process, but every time I would go work on the car, my mindset was either, man, nobody wants to see this, or it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's kind of the, you know, a lot of the times when I was building stuff, I didn't know if it was going to work out. You know, for my example, I have a fly-by-wire gas pedal. It's not a cable, so I had to build 3 different brackets to make that work, to modify the GTO pedal, which is electronic, to mate up to the IS300 bolt pattern where it bolts into the firewall. You know, that the fuel tank, it took me about 4 times to get the return line into the tank properly. One time I even grenaded a fuel pump, and I thought the car was gonna blow up, to be honest with you. But I had to redo that pump, and there's a thing called a jet valve, which pulls fuel from the other side of the tank. Like the fuel pump's sitting in the driver's side of the tank, but it's a saddle bag, so there's a jet valve that pulls fuel over from the other side. You know, I didn't know anything about it. I knew about it, but I didn't know that I had to have it. I didn't know it wasn't gonna work on its own. So yeah, I mean, picking up a camera to figure all that stuff out was, you know, it was just difficult. So I built the car. I made a few YouTube videos here and there. You know, I did my Tundra TRD Pro grill. That was kind of fun to do because it wasn't a hard project. But yeah, I don't know what you guys would be interested in seeing. You know, I see these big YouTube channels where they, you know, rebuild wrecked cars, or that was 5th. There you go, 6th. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what would be interesting to people, I guess. You know, at some point I would love to buy a wrecked vehicle and rebuild it. You know, I definitely have the knowledge, the tools, the know-how to do it, and that seems to be pretty popular on YouTube. But I think that's a great entryway to buy a car. I want a C7 Corvette so bad, but you know, that's an expensive project, so I'll have to work my way up to that and see if it's possible. But yeah, so this car, it's a 2004 Lexus IS300. I went through a phase where I was buying and flipping cars every now and then, and that's what I had intended to do with this. I think the guy on Facebook Marketplace wanted $3,000 for it. It's got 200,000 miles on the chassis. That's a lot. I basically thought, you know, I could clean it up, flip it, make a few bucks, maybe swap it to a manual transmission, because those cars are worth more money. But when I got there, him and I both drove a little bit of a distance. I borrowed my buddy's trailer, which actually is now my trailer. I borrowed his trailer, and I met up with him, and you know, I found out that this car had a rebuilt title, which means it was a salvage write-off at some point for an insurance company, and I had no interest in that. And I genuinely think the guy didn't know. He didn't speak great English. Long story short, a bunch of back and forth. I told him, you know, no thanks, I just don't want the car, I'm gonna keep looking. He was bent on selling the car, so he came in and he said, look man, make me an offer, it's my wife's car, I gotta get rid of it. I said, man, I don't want to offend you, I don't even want the car. So I'm packing on my trailer with my dad, and he comes over and he's like, man, seriously, make me an offer. I said, dude, I'm not gonna give you more than $1,000 for the car. He's like, I need 15. I was like, nah man, I don't want the car. Go to pull out, he said, all right man, $1,000, you got yourself a deal. So I had this car. I don't know what to do with it, I can't flip it. You know, I look at doing a big 2JZ turbo motor, rebuilt the car, the motor that was in it, you know, and went back and forth, didn't know what to do with it. Sat on the car for a couple months. I ended up researching LS swaps. Found a company out of Texas called Dedicated Motorsports, which I can try to link below if I remember. This guy named Matt Owen, he did like 3 or 4 swaps, did a bunch of write-ups online. It was awesome. You know, and I kind of used his thread on the IS300 forums as a template, and yeah, I went from there. I found an LS2 out of a GTO with a T56. It's a 6-speed transmission. I found it at a junkyard. I think they specialize in this kind of thing. I found the motor from, you know, this junkyard in North Carolina. My dad and I drove 3.5 hours to go get it. And yeah, you know, we went and picked it up. This swap was way more expensive than I thought it would be. Looking back on it, I don't know that I would do it again, or maybe I would do something different. Maybe do a truck motor. Truck motor might have been a cheaper route to go, but I didn't know a lot about LS motors at the time. So I bought this LS swap. I bought the motor mount kit and a few other things from Matt Owen at Dedicated Motorsports, and I did everything in my garage. You know, I spent 11 years as a lead technician with Lexus. I've got, you know, a garage full of tools. So this kind of thing wasn't too out of reach for me as far as, you know, technical ability. The wiring was pretty difficult. That took a while to get straight, but I did it all. It's the GM factory harness made it to the Lexus harness. So for instance, the GM ECU triggers the Lexus fans, the factory relays, all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. More about the car. It was an automatic chassis, manual. So I had to swap the automatic brake pedal for a manual one, and I bought all the individual pieces through my dealership to piece together the clutch pedal. So I had to add that, drill the firewall, all that good stuff. The car is a blast to drive. It really is. I had a black on black 5-speed IS300. It was a 2002 that I owned years ago, and that car was fun, but it was definitely underpowered. I mean, the torque of this car is just awesome. I mean, you can just put it, you know, this is third gear at 40 miles an hour. You know, it just sounds awesome. You know, it's got plenty of torque, it handles really well. In 2 weeks, I'm doing my first track day at VIR. So I'm gonna trailer it down to VIR. It's about a 3-hour ride from where I live. And I'm gonna put it out on the track. You know, I'll try to get some footage of that. You know, the whole thing about YouTube is filming yourself. I don't want to feel like a tool filming myself in front of other people. That's part of the reason it took me a month to put this video together. On my wife's TikTok, which, you know, majority of you people probably signed on because of that TikTok prank, but, you know, there was a lot of comments on showing the car, and I'm actually driving somewhere. I've got a drone. I'm gonna get a little, you know, a few shots of the car under the hood, you know, all that stuff. As far as wiring goes, the speedometer works because it gets wheel speed through the track ECU on the Lexus side. My gas gauge works, check engine light works, all that stuff works. My tach does not work. That is irritating. So I ended up buying what's called a scan gauge, which plugs into the OBD2 connector that feeds from the GM ECU. So I've got alternator output, fuel pressure, not fuel pressure, oil pressure, and coolant temp. You know, those are the things I want to monitor all the time. So I have that going. What else? The car had an open differential. Everybody, you know, wants an arm and a leg for Lexus IS300 differential. I found out that the BRZ, the Subaru BRZ and the Toyota FRS, or Scion FRS, I guess it was, that differential bolts straight into this chassis, and it's a helicoil type. It's a helicoil type limited slip. So the only thing you'd have to do is you have to get some washers to shim the pinion because it's a little loose. God, I love it. It's awesome. Love these back roads. It's only a couple minutes from my house. I don't know how much of this y'all are getting, but the car is just a blast to drive. I love going through these twisties. But anyway, so it's got a limited slip. I figured with this kind of power, an open differential wasn't going to do it. I had the car tuned by Matt Shue. I took it to him at his job, and he dynoed it, got it running right for me. It made 360 to the ground. Good power. I'm happy with that. I don't need anything crazy. I think eventually I might put a cam in the car. Matt seems to think that would be good for 60 to 70 horsepower on this motor. I don't know if that's exaggerated, don't quote me on that, but I might do that eventually. But you know, when I first got this car running, I had the stock 17-inch wheels. I think they're 17x7s with a 215 tire. And man, it would just burn the tire. If you stomp on it in third gear, it would roast the tires. As fun as that is, it's just not good usable power. So I ended up buying the Inky, however you pronounce that, RPF ones. It's a 17x9, and then I did a 245/40/17 tire. It's a Dunlop Dureza. It's much better. It's got tons of grip in the corners. Second gear will still roast the tire. Third gear, I got good traction. So all that's good now. It's sitting on Fortune 500 coilovers. I've got some Figs engineering, rear lower control arms, rear toe arms, some bushings. I did the refresh kit where I've got new inner and outer tie rods and lower ball joints in the front. What else have I done? These Corbeau seats, I don't know if you can see them, but the stock seats that this guy had, completely shredded. They were just falling apart. I was gonna get them recovered, but I ended up going with these reclinable race sport seats. You know, I did a lot of research. I wanted to do the Sparco Evos, but I didn't want to do a cage. There's a lot of stuff out there. You know, you can't have buckets with a harness and a harness bar without a cage. If you get into a rollover, it's not safe. I did intend to track this car, so I didn't want an instructor or anybody uncomfortable being in the car. And, you know, heaven forbid I do roll this thing, I want to be able to, you know, or whatever. I don't want to be pinned down with my harness, you know, harness holding me in and snap my neck, which, you know, I don't know if that's, you know, a urban legend or if that actually happens, but clutch is still a little funny. Yeah, the clutch is still a little funny. I just pulled this motor. I should have filmed that, I didn't. But I just pulled the motor because I had to take the clutch apart. I used the factory clutch or whatever clutch the previous owner of this motor set had, and it felt really funny. And I had this chirping from the slave cylinder, so I went ahead and trashed all that, and I bought a LS7 clutch. I went ahead and just redid, you know, OEM slave cylinder, new lines, LS7 clutch, new flywheel, all new hardware. But I had to pull the motor to do it. So there's no getting this transmission out in the car, which sucks. But I've got an engine lift at my house. Don't have a car lift. I really wish I had one of those. But yeah, just did that. I just got a charge speed hood for the front. The previous owner, and everything on this car was just rigged. I had to put so much work into getting this car back up to where I think it's okay, and there's still stuff that bothers me, but the the hood latch cable was seized, and so instead of replacing the cable, this dude drills holes in the hood and puts these cheap knockoff crap hood pins. They're like these little circle chrome hood pins in the hood, and it kills me because I got these crappy looking hood pins in my hood. I fixed the hood latch cable so my factory latch works again, but you know, I talked to some of the guys in my body shop about fixing that, and it's so hard to get right. And you know, how much money do I want to invest in this hood, you know, to repaint it, fix that? You know, there's rock chips and stuff in it. So I found a vented charge speed hood. It should help with engine cooling. Not that that's a problem really with this car. I'm using the factory radiator, and that's been fine, but looks cool. And you know, I didn't want to sink money into a hood when I could buy something cool. So I had to replace both AC servo motors. I ended up replacing the rear 6x9 speakers. I ended up replacing those just so it could be somewhat streetable. No AC, I didn't want to mess with AC. I thought about it, but yeah, I don't drive this car enough, and that seemed like a big headache, so I didn't even bother. Why bother? Other than that, I mean, the car's good. The motor doesn't really have anything done to it, just the intake and the exhaust. It's got the headers from Dedicated Motorsports. They've got a 3-inch V-band collector. And then I went to a local guy, Roy Hendricks, not Rick Hendricks, Roy Hendricks. He did a 3-inch exhaust off the headers to a Y pipe. I did a catalytic converter because I didn't want it to be too loud and I didn't want it to be too obnoxious. I'm not going for a full-blown race car. That's fine with me. It's got a catalytic converter and it's got a Flowmaster muffler. Perfectly fine for me. I don't need much more than that. So. The brakes, I had 2 seized front calipers. They were dragging. The rotors were warped and they were grooved real bad. So I ended up buying the Brembo OEM replacement rotors. I work for the dealership, but I got a better deal on all 4 rotors, pads, and shims. And I think they're rated a little better than the OEM pads. Maybe, don't quote me on that. Don't kill me if I'm wrong, but. For the track day of VIR, I did order some EBC yellow stuff brake pads and some Motul RBF 600, some Motul brake fluid, so that the car will actually have some brakes. Really excited about the track day. Hopefully I can get this hood painted and straight for the track day. It's got the LS2, it's a 6-liter all aluminum V8. This motor came out of a Pontiac GTO, which I mentioned earlier. It's got the T56 6-speed transmission. And then from there, I went with the drive shaft drive shaft. So it's a Lexus rear end flange. The drive shaft is all aluminum. It's good for 800 horsepower. I'll never need that, but it's kind of something they had off the shelf. I bought that. A lot of guys, when they do this swap, they modify the GTO oil pan, which is honestly part of the reason I went with the GTO motor. They modify the oil pan, but I tried to do that and I could never get it to clear the subframe. It was too tight of a fit. It was going to reduce my oil capacity down to about 4.5 quarts. I didn't feel good about that, so Dedicated Motorsports, they sell an oil pan kit. It was way expensive. I don't know what the numbers were, but I ended up buying a Canton oil pan that I believe is the same thing. I did the oil filter relocation bracket and stud kit and all that stuff. The OEM GTO oil pan gasket. It's got a little bit of a leak. I need to figure out what's going on. It's near the oil filter housing, but it's like a drop every week. It's not a big deal. So. But I got to keep my 6.5 quart capacity, which was big for me. It's got baffles in it, so when I'm tracking the car, it's not gonna get starved for oil. So I'm pretty excited about that. Water pump stock, I didn't change that. I did the spark plugs. I did a few other things. I wonder if I can. Yeah, going back to my goals for the YouTube channel. I don't know how often I'll be able to post. I mean, this video took me a month to find time to make. Like I said, I'd love to build another car. I've always wanted an FD-RX-7, but they're just stupid expensive. With everything's going through the roof. But those cars, people are selling rollers for $15,000. It's absurd to me. If you want one in good shape, it's about 30 grand, 25 to 30 grand. That even might have gone up. Who knows? But I'd rather buy a Corvette. I'd rather buy something that's fast off the shelf. That car, that was kind of like always my halo car, my dream car. But, after I built this and I've God, this clutch. After I build this, and you know, seeing what this car is capable of, you know, I think I'd rather just have something that was, you know, out of the box, good. Well, I don't know how well those drone shots turned out, and I don't even know if you can see me right now because it's dark and I've got the light on, but it was actually a pretty cool spot not far from my house. Yeah, so let me know what you think. Hopefully the video turns out okay. Let me know what you want to see. I mean, I'm gonna go down to VIR and do a track day. I can bring my camera, you know, for that and let you know how it goes. I've never had this car on track, so I've done track days. I've done track days on my motorcycles before, but never in a car. I used to autocross all the time, but nothing with a car at VIR. So I'm excited to see how it goes. But yeah, let me know what you want to see. Let me know if you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it's not too boring. It's just me sitting there talking, but just kind of wanted to give an intro to what my car is. I also have a motorcycle. I've got a 2020 Yamaha R1. I'll do some videos with that, and I've also got my Tundra. I don't know that I'm going to modify the Tundra much, so there's really not a lot to videotape there, but if I do something, I'll film it. You know, I'm going to do a bed cover at some point, but you know, it's all just routine stuff there. So yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing. See you next time.